Welcome back to another episode of Design Dialogues, where we deep dive into the world of UI UX with some of the brightest minds in the industry. I'm your host, Jaspreet, and today we have a very special guest, Nikhil Tiwari, a seasoned UX professional, entrepreneur, and product strategy expert. Nikhil has had an inspiring journey in the design industry, winning the Best UI UX Designer Award in 2015. Today, we'll unpack the lessons he has learned, the biggest mistakes early designers make, and the skills, tools, and mindset needed to thrive in this ever evolving field. Nikhil, welcome to Design Dialogues. Lovely to have you here on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jaspreet and Rohit, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Great. So let's start with your award-winning work, Nikhil. Winning the Best UI UX Designer Award is no small feat. So can you take us back to that moment? What was the project, and what do you think had set your work apart?
Okay, so it was a time of 2015. So when a hackathon was organized by my efforts in accordance with a company called Car Dekho, which is very popular these days. The Amit Jain, the founder of the Shark Tank, the founder of companies also in the Shark Tank. So they organized a hackathon where the agenda was to hire some good UX people in their team. So rather than going with so that was actually a creative approach. Later I realized, rather than just hiring with the classical process, they just organized a hackathon and they just spotted out some winners and hired those in team. So the process was very creative. So instead of just like in classical interviews, how it used to happen, just they asked just some generic questions, the bookish answers, rather than they have just given us a problem statement, and the problem statement was to make it easy interface for people to identify and to get results to the used car they want. So there was uh, multiple factors when people were looking for a used car. There could be like how many kilometers that car has been driven, how much year the car has been already registered, and a few some parameters. So that was the major problem statement. So we really need to look and think from the user perspective, how a user would be thinking when they would be looking to buy a used car. So that's how it happened. So they just given a problem statement. We just solved that problem with multiple approaches, and then the session happened, which a whiteboarding session where we have to explain our design logics, what we have thought behind that particular process, the particular interface which we have pulling it up for the users, and all the information should be data driven and clearly contextable for the user. So that's how it is done. And luckily, I got the first spot in that particular competition. And once they announce the winner, me as a winner, then along with the some winning amount, they just offered me the job in the organization as well. So post that, I actually worked in car for almost 2 years.
Nice, nice. So, what one unique feature that you had thought of, like, would be the approach to solve the problem while you were designing that?
So at that time, if I remember clearly, I had introduced one feature which clicked very well. I think that played a very crucial role highlighting me there was. So I have created a finance tool in that particular section where the people can people can input their whole earning or salary which they are getting, and the projection of that salary, that information, that design was some data driven. I tried to make it some data driven, so that based on that earning, the platform would be suggesting which car actually you can afford if you going to buy it, whether going to buy it for a loan process. So how much that EMI, how much that would be feasible EMI which you can easily afford. So that's the one process, one particular feature which really worked for me there, and they liked it actually, and they have introduced that feature later as well in the platform for a longer time.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Anything, Rohit, you want to add? Any other feature that we can think of while we get to design something, uh, you know, like Nikhil said, about the data-driven and earnings that he asked from the users.
So, first, Nikhil, it is very interesting exactly what you described. Uh, Last year, we were doing just a sort of an internal assignment, if you will, uh, where we were working on our robo advisory app. And one of the use
Mhm.
cases that I had suggested was very similar to what you just said. So, the idea was you input your basically whatever your forget about putting in your salary, whatever, just input how much do you think you save, because inputting a whole bunch of things, not everybody knows that. So it was like, okay, whatever you think you save, put it there, and then just tell us what are your dreams, what are you thinking of buying. It could be anything, right? Phone, car, home, whatever. It's fine. And then we will give you a reality check and we'll tell you, okay, well, you know what, based on what you save, here is what seems achievable. Here is the thing that you probably should focus on, not everything. And then if you really are interested in that, how can you actually make it happen? So what you described resonated with me on that line. Just
Right.
back to your question, I think based on Nikhil's story, look, the things, if we are given an opportunity to think about something or build something from scratch, I feel that those things resonate well with people, which are very simple to understand and have some sort of a emotional connect to them. And it's just a different take on something that has been looked at in a very plain, boring manner. And, the reason why I think that sticks is because there is this element of surprise or element of wow, that, oh, this could also be done like that. So, I mean, in terms of picking features, what or figuring out how you want to design something, I would say that's one lens which people should use.
Mhm. That makes so much sense, Rohit. So back to Nikhil, like you shared about the project and what made it stand out. Um, now, now, if you look back, now, do you think the same approach would still hold up today? Like you did share that the same feature was incorporated in their app as well. So now, if we talk about the approach that you applied, back in 2015, will it still hold today? And does it have still the same definition of making it award winning, or has it changed over time?
Okay, so yes, so to some extent, I can say yes, but we have to accept that also, like the technology, since the whole technology bubble is whole evolving so rapidly, so the design is also, so design is also actually evolved. Today, UX is more data driven and like inclusive of the inclusion of AI these days. Too much of AI, whether it's writing a content in the AI or like generating the picture. So that perspective has changed completely, and the that's how the difference which is these days. And there is one saying which I used to believe very closely: the tools keeps on changing. Like when I started in 2009, at that time I started UI designing on the Adobe Photoshop some version, but today I'm designing on Figma. The whole team is designing on Figma. So tools has changed in every 5 years, roughly in average of in every 5 years, but the principle remains same. So the designer should stick to the principles, because principles are going nowhere. So that's the difference of time at the time when I started and the time when I am sitting today.
Mhm. Right. So like what we understand is that things that have worked few years ago, they might not necessarily
Yes,
work today. But even if they do or they do not, at the core, it's all about the users. Um,
yes.
right. So moving
Even
on
the
to, sorry, yeah.
even the perspective of the user has also been changed, because at that time, if you talk about like 10 or 15 years back, the expectation was really low. So like I'll give you the example which I can every one of us relates very closely. So like a decade back, when the screen is loading in, let's say 3 or 4 seconds, people were really acceptable. But in today's time, if the screen is taking more than microseconds, so people are thinking the product is crap. So that's how the expectation is changing rapidly, like year by year. And that is actually happening very fast because of the changes in the environment, whether it's the technology, the speed of the data, and the availability of the interface in terms of like the mobile phone devices, tablets, even the watches, and some tech gadgets.
Mhm. So how users are accepting, things being driven or things wherein AI is involved? What's your take on that?
So AI, so we have to accept the AI. So like similarly, we started accepting the technology, let's say 25 years back, and the same at same position the AI is today. So we cannot say like we cannot accept AI. We should accept AI, and even actually knowingly or unknowingly, the people are actually accepting it. So whatever the content we are seeing around, whatever the images we are seeing, even the suggestions, the very important thing is the suggestions or the content suggestion which we are having it either on the social apps or on the Google ads or the content on any electronic device which we are seeing. That's whole thing is AI driven. So people might not be knowing that I'm not around AI, but they are around AI actually.
Great, makes sense. So now, we'll move on to the next one, Nikhil, and that is more for the early designers. Okay, because we all know that UX designers, they have to start from somewhere, and they make mistakes, they are learning. So what are the biggest pitfalls that you see early designers they fall into?
So great question, and I love to answer such questions also. So one of the biggest mistake which I see the young designers make is they fall in love very early, and they fall in love with the visual design too early. So they fall in love with the visuals very early, and like they get attached to a color scheme layout before truly understanding the problem of the user, which the actually problem the user is facing. Because uh, UI UX are so closely attached. UI field is like so full of color, shape, and everything, the gradient, picture images. So that actually attracts designers. So that's how we have to create a very gentle approach, that we have to keep our guardrails. The designers has to keep their guardrails, that we have to spend dedicated time and good amount of time on UX, which includes the research, listening people, and the reworking iterations. Like the failing on, let's say we have built a feature and it gets failed, that learn from those fails and get feedbacks from the customers. So that's very important for the users. And another is the avoid working in the isolation. So we have to, as a designer, we have to really accept that Figma is just not the frame where I have to work. So being a designer is not just about the Figma, rather than interacting with the users. So users are the one important stakeholders in the system. Along with that, so because whatever we design on Figma, it's not going to stick on Figma until and unless it is going to convert into the product. It's of no use. So that we have to understand. There are another stakeholders which is very important, are the developers around whom we are working. So we need to really closely work with the developers, the product folks, the users, support teams, or the feedback team, or even the support team, which is clearly and very extensively getting the feedback from the customers. So we have to work closely with everyone in the system, in the company, in the product environment where we are working. So that's very important. So which is actually for every designer to, let's not be the silent designer only. Just be in the every corner of the room where you're working. You have to interact with everyone in the system, so that you'll be able to know the large set of feedbacks coming from everywhere. Because feedback is not one point. Today people are writing their problems on the Facebook or the social channels. So even to that extent, designer has to keep their eye on everywhere where my user is facing the problem, because problem is the one thing which our major responsibility and duty is to resolve through the interfaces.
Nikhil, on that note, I'm wondering, do you think there is any such thing as benefiting from domain knowledge as a designer? So let me clarify what I mean exactly. So let's say you have been working in the retail banking space for say 2 years. Uh,
Yes.
so obviously as a designer, okay? And then if I ask you to, and you are a awesome designer, leave aside the domain part. So you can bring those skills to any other problem statement that is given to you. But do you think if I put a designer into a healthcare problem who has a experience, exact same quality of designer, but one person comes from healthcare domain already, the other one comes from say a retail banking domain. So is there any benefit for of having any domain knowledge?
Yes, so I can start with the one statement that it is important to having a domain knowledge, but not necessary. Because being a designer, the very first thing which like I used to teach the students whom I teach like UI UX design lessons. So very one thing which I start with is the empathy, and empathy in ourselves. So we have to really empathize to understand the user. Similarly, we have to understand the domain as well. So like if I shifted to a some new domain, let's say banking was new for me 5 years back, I did not know what the e-nash is. Like, but when I have like eager to learn, I was eager to explore new things. I have not limited myself. So it is very quite linked to the last question of Jaspreet. So I have to really work with everyone in the system to gain my knowledge, so that it can enhance my product building experience which I'm building. So that's how it's matter. And to an extent, yes, it draws a line between a domain expert and a non-domain expert, because a domain expert will always having a plus point by having a domain knowledge, because the interface of people who is already having a domain knowledge is actually speaks loudly about the problem, the solution of the problem which we are trying to solve through a product.
Thanks, Nikhil. And thank you for that interesting question as well from your side, Rohit. So what we could understand, that one thing is that something that looks cool doesn't really mean that it will be usable. So we have to focus on the usability aspect first. Um, like you said, Nikhil, that we don't have to fully focus on the looks and visuals of the product of the interface, but yes, how usable it is definitely important. So back to 2015, what advice would you give to yourself, to your younger self, that back at that time, what you would have done or what things you would should have focused on?
Nice. So I'll just take a moment to think. It's actually important for me as well. So by answering this question, I actually going to imply on myself as well. So one thing which I can recollect now is to which I'm doing these days, but no, I have not done in 2015, or let's say time before that. So what I realize is build relationship, not just screens. So I would like to quote this way. So like talk more and more people. And because at that time when we start, and not start as a designer, so when anyone in the industry start career in any particular domain, there is a hesitation, and hesitation comes from seeing the large groups, experienced people, the so much perfection around. And the fresher people will always know, I am definitely not going to be the perfect on the day one. That's create a hesitation. So that needs to be killed as early as possible, and that's going to definitely kill by asking any questions. So the more you ask, the more you learn. So that's what I believe. So it doesn't matter whether sometimes it may feel like, is it going to be a dumb question which I'm going to ask in this forum? But I say no, let's ask it, because that's just going to kill your hesitation. It's going to build relationship with everyone around, and you're going to interact with everyone, and listen more and more. So in the early stages, definitely you have to listen as more as possible, involve as much as in the discussion. So that's quite few things which I must advise myself when I was the young designer. And similarly, I would definitely like to like advice to the young designer these days.
That's a very valid point. I totally agree, Nikhil. And last week, we also had one podcast where we discussed about user-centered design culture in the organization, like how different teams should be involved, and how everybody should have that mindset of driving this culture in the entire organization, the UCD approach. So yeah, basis workshops and certain sessions, we can definitely get to remove that hesitation so that everybody start giving their inputs. Yeah.
So one interesting thing, so very close to this, one very interesting thing which I started implementing in my organization. So I run a team of 30 people. A couple of week back, what I realized, like people are working together, they are communicating on Google Meets, Teams, etc. But still there is a silo, there is a isolation which everyone is having. So isolation is like smallest portion, but it is there. So what I started as a practice in my team. So since there are 30 people, there are multiple projects, five, six projects at a time running. 3 to 4 people average in one team. One in one project, 3 to 4 people are working. So what I kickstarted is here is there is a seat which is designated to everyone in the system. But I suggested everyone, whosoever working on a one project, let's sit together. No matter for, let's say you are working for 15 days on one project, the 3 people needs to sit together and work on the project until you finish it work. So it actually started resulting it very well for me. So I'm seeing another level of professionalism, another level of detailing which I'm getting into the product. So that's the exercise. This is actually benefiting people. They are more connected, because even so, how they are more connected, not sitting on the table, they are connected, they are actually going on the tea breaks together. So that's how they are working as a more team when they're sitting together, rather than sitting on two different corners of the room, but they're working on a one project. So that's a
Yeah.
one very quick experiment which I have just experimented in my team. Is actually really working very well.
Thank you. Thank you for that valuable advice, Nikhil. I'm sure listeners would definitely benefit from it. And now we'll talk about the essential skills. Like UX being such a vast field, what are the absolute must-have skills for designers today? And we can also include, the skills, and then we would also like to know from you the different tools, the toolkit that you use daily, and that we would like to tell the audience.
So on your question, I'll top up one thing also. So you asked me about the essential skills. Along with that, I'll tell you one cheat sheet also for the designers. Like, what one thing which actually make a professional amateur designer to a professional designer. So what mistakes that generally people does. So first come to the skills. So research is one very important thing in our field. So research is very important. We cannot assume anything. So run away from the assumptions, because when we assume, assumption is always or comes from the biasness. Then when there's a biasness, so biasness, if I am biased to myself, then definitely I'm making a product not for the people. I'm making the product for me only, and that product is definitely not going to work. If it's going to work, is going to work with some challenges. So that's one thing. Another is empathy is very important. So empathy is to understand people. Empathy is very important. I can explain it by giving one example. Like, I'm a father of a 3-year-old son. What happened? So like, when I was not married, when I was at signal, and some beggar came to me, when a child in his lap, that my child is very hungry, please give me 10 rupees or 50 rupees, I can just feed him with the milk. I used to give them actually. But coming like 3 years later or 4 years later, now I stopped giving it. Why? Because I learned it from the empathy. I'm learning it empathy from the our life as well. Because now I realize, when my child is hungry, he actually crying all the time until he doesn't get the milk. While at the signal, the mother of that child is saying he's hungry, but he's just sleeping in his lap. So I was not aware, because I was not father then. So I cannot empathize what is being parenting, what is about parenting, how the parenting is actually, how you just response on the child, how the child responds on any need. So at that time I did not know, but yeah, this time I know, like, if the child is hungry, he must be crying. If it's not crying, it's not hungry. So that's why empathy is very important, and it's a truth that you cannot empathize until you into that situation. So to be in that situation is very important. You have to. So that's why in the 2015, when the hackathon was happened, suppose that hackathon, when I joined Car Deco, since it's a used car selling company, we actually have to go. There's a place in called Delhi called Karol Bagh. We have to spend at least a week or 10 days in a month by sitting in the car dealer showroom to understand what people are asking when they're going to buy a used car. Because when we are asking the dealer, it's a passive questions which we are getting, because the question is coming to the car dealer and car dealer is telling us. and it's might be a communication break. So we just sit there and observe people. So apart from empathy, observation is very, very important, because when we ask question, sometimes we get, most of the times we get a fabricated answers, but when we actually observe, we get the real emotions. So yeah, emotions we can only get when we observe people. So that's the two things. And something around like using the right tool, which is very, very important. Just be on the latest tool. Like currently Figma is the most advanced tool for the designers, and people who, the designers who are not using Figma, my strict advice, just switch to the latest tool. That's very, very important, because it helps you getting the job. Because if you are still using the tool which is not on the market or relatively low in the market, you are hunting for a job, you might get like tough time to getting a job, or more rather than more than expected time in getting a job. So that's very, very important for the users, for our designers fellow, to understand really. And post that, the cheat sheet which I was about to tell, that's related to the skill only. So we heard of one statement in technology called lorem ipsum, which is a generic text. When we don't know what to write here, we generally used to write lorem ipsum. So there are two kind of designers: one who write lorem ipsum in the content on the button or anywhere, and another set of designers who are also a fresher designer, but they write actual content. But that actually calls a UX writing. This is a complete separate domain, but there is no limit. Be act as a generalist. So instead of writing just dummy text, dummy images, just place the most realistic content to whom you are presenting, the most realistic images to whom you are presenting. That is actually going to make you 10x rather than who are just putting the dummy images. That actually works as a cheat sheet when you are presenting it to someone, because that build a relation. If people are reading it and not connecting it, it will actually make a disconnect from the design. So that's very important for the designers to have it in their design.
I can
I
vouch for it.
I like that.
I
Yeah.
I love people who do that, and it is very rare to find people who do it. For whatever reason,
Yes.
people will just throw dummy text there, and if you ask, okay, why is that? Oh, well, because marketing is going to provide us that text. Seriously,
Yes.
you have to tell your story using words and pictures both.
Yes. UX is actually a storytelling. If I like look back the past 15 years which I have spent, UX is actually a storytelling. And also, I don't remember exactly. I have given a presentation in some forum. So my first slide was actually, we are a salesman. So if on a very higher, on a larger perspective, if I saw, so UX designers or UI designers are actually a salesman, but we are a silent salesman. This is a very different perspective, and might be in this forum you must be thinking what I'm talking about. But if I actually see it from the very, very top, what a salesman does, salesman just go to the people with the, let's say, bottle of perfume, and they start telling you that this is the perfume, this is the brand, this is a very old brand, legacy brand, this is the making process, everything just salesman is going to tell verbally. And what UI UX designer is going to do, we are going to just present those all information to the client in one interface, by not by telling anyone. Just our interface is going to communicate the same thing which a salesman is telling. So that's why I used to call ourselves, so UX engineer, as a silent salesman. We have to just present all the information in such a way so that the product which you are building is going to sold to the customer.
It's rather easy to talk about the product instead just showing the product, via the
Yes.
interface. That's a little tricky part. And uh,
Yes.
the way we can, communicate with the user via just the interface, being a silent designer, right? So that is going to set things really apart. Um, and we would also like to know about the mindset, Nikhil. Empathy is definitely one. Observe people, like you talked about. Anything else that you would want to add? Um, the kind of mindset that separates a good designer from a great designer.
So the one thing which I opt very regularly is the observation is one thing which I already spoke about. And observation, if I just get into the deep dive of the observation, so observation is not only when you are just working on the product. So I must say to the observe every time. So you can observe every time of your day when you are just waking up. You can observe and say why this is happening. So just put why in your hands. Just ask why this is happening, how it is happening. Just be curious as possible. So the more you curious, the more you get answer. Your brain is getting more sharper, and the the tendency of your brain to get answers is actually evolving very frequently. So the curiosity is very, very important for the designers or the people who wanted to be the design.
Thank you for that, Nikhil. And we'll be moving to our closing segment now. Very, very insightful conversation. Loved the way you explained things. I'm sure the early designers would definitely benefit, from your various advices that you shared. Uh, we would like to ask one final piece of advice. Although you have shared a lot, but anything that you would like to share in one, line to all the aspiring UX designers.
Okay, so if I just summarize what all we talked about, again, summarize in one line could be the folks who are going to start today or who have just started. So for them, it's okay to not know everything because there's no limit, but it's not okay to stop learning. So the learning should be growing continuously, whether the learning is on the product, learning is on the new tool or the new product which is coming, the new consumer, the new domain you are going to interact with. And there is like build your toolkit for your own ease. Like if you're just having a, for example, just for the example, having a set of your fonts, having a set of your libraries where you want to just fetch the content, and like stay curious always, because design is something where the more you ask, the more you get, because designing is also a kind of it starts with a consultation, because when somebody came with a problem statement, and until you know the problem in detail, you might, or you definitely would not be able to answer it, and similarly you'll not be able to create a good product. So like asking more and more question is very, very important for the users, because we have to just get answer from the the people's face. So people might not be knowing that how my problem is going to solve. They can simply just answer your question because they don't know what to explain. But when we ask more and more question, they will definitely come with the answers. And by reading the answers between the lines, like reading the thin lines, we have to just get out how that product or the solution needs to be done for that particular consumer or the group of the consumers.
Thank you for that, Nikhil. Anything that you want to add, Rohit, here?
No, I think Nikhil has covered everything that comes to my mind.
Nice. So thank you for the powerful advice, Nikhil, and really well summarized the entire podcast with your points, and loved the journey that you shared. So it was really, really a pleasure, Nikhil, to have you on Design Dialogues today. To all our listeners, if you found this conversation valuable, don't forget to subscribe, and please do share it with your fellow UX designers or aspiring UX designers. Until next time, keep designing with purpose. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Thank you, Rohit.
Thank you so much.